Hello Commanders, today I will talk about the top 5 light cruisers in Azur Lane. People usually think of light cruisers as a support class with some anti-air capabilities, and while that's true, there are also light cruisers that deal damage and tank. Different light cruisers are capable of fulfilling different roles, and there's a lot of variance, so picking a top 5 becomes very difficult as the best light cruiser could change depending on your situation. So I guess it would be more accurate to say this is my top 5 most used light cruisers, and I think other than the very obvious number 1 spot, every other spot on this list is up for debate. So definitely let me know what you guys think in the comments afterwards. And with that, number 5 is Kirov. Her base stats are all above average, but the reason I use her are for her skills. First skill is missing information in game because as you can see here, the first time she fires her barrage, it actually applies a 15% damage taken debuff to enemies. This is a nice extra damage multiplier to use when looking to just burst down the boss. And then her second skill is less powerful, but it does give her a niche against light armor enemies, particularly enemy light cruisers, as she gives herself and other Northern Parliament ships a decent damage boost against them. And finally, another big reason I use her is that every single Kirov skin is stunning. Did I mention this list might be a little biased? Number 4. Emden. Her stats are okay with the only high stat being reload, but what makes Emden stand out from other light cruisers is her gear loadout. Instead of an anti-air slot, she gets 2 main gun slots and a torpedo slot, and so she technically gets main gun plus 1, and so limit breaking her gives her torpedo capacity and lets her 2 torpedo charges reload simultaneously. This basically means she fires 2 waves of torpedoes with every recharge. This gives her pretty good damage as long as you're not using her in plain heavy maps, where her lack of an anti-air gun really hurts. Now onto the skills. Her first skill gives you the option of getting more damage or survivability depending on what you put in her second slot. Personally, I use the light cruiser gun, because the main gun efficiency is pretty nice, and the shield is not. And then her second skill. The first point is rather niche, but if you ever want to solo vanguard her, go for it. The second part though is essentially a free 10% firepower buff to all your Iron Blood ships, and immediately there are a few ships that come to mind. Ulrich von Hutten, Friedrich der Grosse, Agir. Yes, I read their full names just to show that I did practice my German pronunciation. Anyways, all 3 are UR level ships that would love to get sorted with Emden for the extra firepower. And that's already 4 Iron Blood ships. So she became a pretty good excuse for me to level Bismarck and use her, just to make a full Iron Blood fleet for fun. Number 3 is the ship that should be number 1, San Diego. The retrofit, of course. Yostar took one of the worst SR ships in the game and gave her arguably one of the best retrofits. You see, before her retrofit, she already had the highest anti-air stat in the game. That was because it was the only thing she had going for her. But then they decided, you know what? It's not high enough, so let's give her more anti-air stat and a skill that increases it even further. Now, post retrofit, no one's even close to how much anti-air stat San Diego can provide. But they didn't stop there. Her being a niche anti-air carry is not good enough. So they gave her a boost to her firepower and reload stat. She got main gun plus 1 and improved all-out assault, and the skill gave her an additional barrage. This retrofit turned Sandy into probably the best anti-air carry you can get, but she is not exclusively used for that role anymore. All these other buffs gave her such good damage that she is now a very strong ship for any content. Number 2 is Plymouth. Now I will say, I have not gotten Plymouth to developer level 30 yet, because researching takes forever, but that didn't stop me from using her already because her skills are already really good. Most importantly, her second skill, as it gives the flagship battleship an 18% damage increase with a 100% uptime. So it's just free extra damage for your battleship. And Plymouth's own damage is only gonna get better, because she already gets main gun plus 1 at only developer level 5, but then she gets it again at developer level 30, along with a ton of main gun efficiency along the way. By the time she's maxed out, she gets one of the highest firepower stat out of all light cruisers, main gun plus 2, and she becomes tankier than most heavy cruisers. This gives you a high damage tanky ship with a great support ability as well, truly deserving of being UR level, or DR level. Now for the honorable mentions. Honestly, I can go on and on. There are plenty of powerful light cruisers that I have not mentioned yet. Ships like Seattle, Mainz, Noshiro, Duca degli Abruzzi, Jeanne d'Arc, all really good ships, but I have two ships that I really want to highlight. The first, I have to give to Phoenix, a low rarity ship that you can obtain from literally anywhere. She has very good stats for a rare level ship, and her zombie ability gives her a good amount of survivability too. For veteran players, she was a great choice as a solo vanguard to lower the cost of farming, and though that isn't necessary anymore since they added the oil cost limit, for newer players, I think she remains a great and easily obtainable ship that can carry you through the early stages of the campaign. The second honorable mention is Rika Takarada. I wasn't sure whether to include her or not, as she is a collab ship, meaning if you missed the Gridman event, you probably won't get another chance to obtain her, as collabs have never been rerun before. But I feel like she deserves at least a mention because her kit is honestly overloaded. She has great stats, unique auxiliaries that give her strong ghost equipment. Her 3 skills give her an assortment of offensive and defensive buffs, a heal, and 3 powerful barrages. Basically, I'm saying if you have Rika, she is definitely worth leveling. If not, don't worry about it. A lot of the ships I mentioned before are honestly just as strong as her. Number 1, to no one's surprise, is Helena. Why Helena takes number 1 is very simple. Her radar scan. This skill is busted because nothing else even comes close to a 40% damage taken debuff. Helena herself could do 0 damage and it wouldn't matter because as soon as you get this skill to proc, she is contributing more damage to your fleet than any other ship you could replace her with. This is why the endgame fleet building kinda revolves around the skill. The more stuff you can line up with your 20-second timer, the more damage you can do. And then they decided to buff her by giving her a great oath skin. So now everyone is forced to oath her. Now, Helena is at the top of the meta and a top tier waifu, and there is absolutely no reason not to use her.